In our last video, we introduced the concept of the relational emotional compartment, a mental wall your brain builds to cope with chronic stress. We also discussed your brain's dual mindset, the fast, emotional, low road, and the slower, more rational high road. Today, we're going to see how the low road can take over and create a new reality. The dual mindset is essentially a battle between your protective, reactive self and your authentic, regulated self. The emotional compartment is the physical manifestation of the low road winning that battle in a specific context. At its core, chronic stress leads to the construction of a powerful, self-protecting neural network in a person's brain. It's built to shield them from emotional pain, but ends up trapping them in a negative reality. This entire process happens in three main phases. This emotional compartment is a deeply ingrained, overactive circuit that becomes the brain's default response. The low road takes over. In a healthy brain, your high road, the executive control network, ECN, uses the neurotransmitter GABA to calm the amygdala, your brain's fear center. But under chronic stress, your low road is on constant high alert. The ECN can't keep up, and the GABA system fails to regulate the anxiety. The default narrative, overwhelmed by this constant pain, the brain's storytelling network, the default mode network, DMN, creates a new, fear-based narrative. This narrative, while rooted in pain, provides a sense of purpose and control, such as, "I am in danger and I must leave to be safe." The walled-off pathway. To maintain this narrative and achieve a sense of relief, the brain forms a well-worn neural pathway of fear and negative interpretation. This is the emotional compartment, a defensive, automatic system that walls off a person's deepest emotions. This powerful network, centered around the amygdala and parts of the DMN, becomes so strong that it functions like an autopilot. It's important to know that you can have multiple compartments for different areas of your life, like a work compartment from a stressful job or a childhood trauma compartment. Each one is a distinct, deeply reinforced neural network tied to a specific stressor. Think of them as individual autopilot programs, one for your relationship, one for your job, and so on. Once an emotional compartment is established, it's no longer just a reaction. It's an active, protective force. Its primary purpose becomes self-preservation, and it develops powerful mechanisms to protect itself from any conflicting information. Confirmation bias, from offense to defense. The confirmation bias itself changes purpose. Initially, it was a tool to justify leaving by focusing on all the negative aspects. After the compartment is created, the bias becomes a defensive shield, actively blocking any new positive information that threatens the stability of this new, walled-off reality. Positive changes are ignored, filtered out, or reinterpreted as self-serving. This makes a person unconsciously blind to the truth, hijacking the calming system. This negative circuit becomes so dominant that it hijacks the very system meant to regulate it. According to the principle of neurons that fire together, wire together, the compartment's negative circuit has fired so frequently that it strengthens its neural connections to GABA-releasing neurons. It effectively wins their loyalty, out-competing the healthy signals from the ECN. This is how the brain actively fights against any new, positive neural pathways to protect its established, flawed sense of safety. This process can inhibit emotions so deeply that the person feels completely out of love and emotionless towards their partner, making leaving seem like the only sane option. The emotional compartment is a powerful defense, but it has a breaking point. While breaking out of this deeply embedded system is an immense challenge, it is possible. Your consistent, non-needy behavior creates immense cognitive dissonance. The physical reality of your positive changes constantly contradicts the person's brain's negative narrative, creating a deep, energetic conflict between the low road and the high road. The brain expends a massive amount of energy to maintain its old, negative pathway while suppressing the new, positive ones. The emotional compartment can contain pain, but it can't contain this relentless, non-threatening pressure over a long period. The energy cost of maintaining the lie can become greater than the energy cost of facing the truth. When this happens, The conflict reaches a tipping point where the brain is forced to choose a new, more truthful pathway or double down on the current narrative. When this breaking point is reached, the person will feel an uncontrollable urge to resolve the dissonance. This often leads to a crucial conversation or confrontation. When handled the right way, by calmly and consistently proving the confirmation bias narrative wrong, this conversation can create a break in the emotional compartment. The brain can no longer suppress its true emotions, and for the first time, it is forced to confront the new reality. This is the breakdown of the emotional compartment and the beginning of the path to healing. This leads to a big question. Is it worth fighting for the relationship? If you give up and a couple splits up, will the person with the emotional compartment heal on their own? The answer is complex, but one thing is clear. The emotional compartment will not vanish automatically. The what-if scenario of the partner giving up highlights the fundamental difference between this neurological structure and a simple feeling of being out of love. If you stop applying that relentless pressure, the immense cognitive dissonance simply vanishes. The brain no longer has to expend massive energy to suppress the truth. This allows the emotional compartment to return to its unchallenged state, where its negative narrative is the dominant and most efficient neural pathway. When the couple splits up, the compartment is actually reinforced. The act of leaving and the temporary sense of relief it provides validate the compartment's core narrative: I am in danger, and I must leave to be safe. The person's brain interprets the separation as proof that its defensive actions were justified. The compartment, now validated, remains intact and ready to be activated in the future. This is why the spillover effect continues. Because the underlying neural structure remains, the person's brain continues to operate from a place of fear and negative interpretation. This becomes their default mode, not just for relationships but for all parts of their life. They may find themselves struggling to form deep bonds in new relationships, misinterpreting the actions of friends or family, and experiencing ongoing anxiety or emotional numbness. So, what exactly are the mental scales, and how do they explain cognitive dissonance? Mental scales govern how we look at anything in our world. Your brain builds and reinforces separate neural networks for every experience. Every time you feel love or safety, specific neurons fire together, forming a strong positive network. The same happens with chronic stress, fear, and pain, which create a separate, powerful negative network. Think of these two networks as opposite sides of a scale. Every new event in a relationship is mentally weighed. Does it add to the positive side of the scale or the negative side? In a healthy brain, the scales are relatively balanced. But for a truly intimate and thriving relationship, those scales should be consistently tipping to the positive side. This is where cognitive dissonance comes in. It's the uncomfortable conflict that occurs when new evidence contradicts the dominant side of the scales. To understand this, let's use a simple example. If you have a bad experience with a chili pepper, your brain builds a strong negative network around it. Later, if a friend says, "This chili dish is delicious," you feel dissonance. Your brain's autopilot knows chilies are bad, so it will likely ignore the new information to avoid that uncomfortable conflict. This is the exact same process behind the relational emotional compartment. Chronic relationship stress creates a massively heavy negative network that makes a person unconsciously blind to their partner's positive changes. Those changes create a painful dissonance that the emotional compartment actively works to suppress, all in the name of self-preservation. But it's crucial to understand that not all negative networks are created equal. The emotional compartment is far more dangerous because of the specific neurons that fire together. It's not just a simple aversion network. It's a pathological structure centered around the amygdala, your brain's fear center, and it hijacks your GABA system, which is meant to calm you. The chili pepper example shows the principle, but the emotional compartment is a far more deeply wired structure because of the crucial brain systems it manages to take over. This brings us to a crucial question. So, if confirmation bias is just a process, why do people say things like, he has a strong confirmation bias, or she suffers from it. The reason is that the strength of the confirmation bias process is a direct result of the strength of the underlying neural network, here the emotional compartment. While it's an active function of your brain's storyteller, the default mode network, DMN, the power of that process depends entirely on the narrative it's defending. When your mental scales are heavily tilted to the negative side, the DMN becomes a powerful gatekeeper, using confirmation bias to actively filter out any new information that contradicts that story. It selectively lets in information that confirms its beliefs, while ignoring or reinterpreting anything positive that would create uncomfortable cognitive dissonance. When someone suffers from confirmation bias, it's because the negative network in their relational emotional compartment has become so deeply wired and pathologically structured that the DMN is forced to defend it at all costs, even at the expense of reality. The process becomes unchangeable because it's centered around the amygdala, your brain's fear center, and it has hijacked your GABA system, which is meant to calm you. The stronger the underlying network, the stronger and more rigid the confirmation bias process becomes.